Quote from the book: "Supplier market intelligence comprises the systematic gathering, evaluation and use of information on all incumbent and potential new suppliers." When I started as a procurement consultant in the mid-90s, access to supply information was very limited. Today, we are at the risk to miss the forest for the trees. In this video, I will talk about supply market intelligence in general and why it is central to continuity of supply and to sustainability in today's environment. Let's get started. The core element of Ignacio Lopez-style global sourcing was challenging incumbent suppliers with quotes from new suppliers. Remember that in the 80s and early 90s, German car makers would mostly rely on German suppliers and UK car makers on UK suppliers and so on. In the absence of the internet and search engines, identifying new suppliers was pretty difficult. There were specialized companies compiling lists of suppliers with the parts they offered and telephone numbers and fax numbers. They sold these lists in the form of heavy books, often with hundreds of pages. And if you remember correctly, the price of one copy of these books could easily exceed $5,000. Despite the steep price, the quality of this list was questionable. We usually had gas stations and dentist offices in our list of automotive suppliers. So I hereby apologize to all dentists that I asked if they would be interested in receiving an RFP for automotive parts. Today, Google, Wikipedia, YouTube and others are 1,000 times more accurate than any of the lists we had to work with then. But the search also has to go a lot deeper in today's environment. Then, we were mostly interested in finding new suppliers in order to achieve lower prices. Today, supply market intelligence is mostly used in the context of supply chain management or risk management. And it is more focused on sub-tier suppliers. Let me give you two examples that very much characterize what happened recently. In April 2020, most European car makers went into a pandemic-induced shutdown. When they were preparing to ramp up, they had to inquire the supply chain about the readiness to deliver good quality parts and required quantities. This was relatively easy with Tier 1 suppliers, but the car makers to a large extent did not know and still don't know their Tier 2 suppliers. So they had to rely on Tier 1 suppliers vouching for the Tier 2 suppliers. This mostly went well, but still felt uncomfortable. And it was a warning sign about what was about to come. In 2020, the semiconductor crisis hit the automotive industry. The semiconductor supply chain is even longer and more complex than what the automotive industry is already used to. And bottlenecks can pop up anywhere in the supply chain. Car makers had to learn a lot of new terminology like fabs, foundries, OSATs, node sizes and IC substrates. So the automotive industry has twice been caught flat-footed in what was a clear lack of supply market intelligence. The third time is just around the corner with ever stricter sustainability requirements that are imposed by governments, expected by the public and self-imposed by car makers. Looking deep into the supply chain will become absolutely key. You will need to know where your sub-tier suppliers are sourcing energy. You will need to know where your raw material is coming from. And you will need to know who is employed under which conditions. So there you have it, E3 supply market intelligence, a purchasing chessboard method that was once key for achieving savings and is now central for the very survival of your company. Okay, now it is your turn. Let all of us know where you would rank the supply market intelligence of your company on a 1 to 10 scale. And should you have a question, I will get back to you within 24 hours. Thank you for watching and I see you in the next one. Bye.